So we're gonna install the security bypass cable so that I can read this. Customer decided he's gonna buy a brand new computer, that way he has the factory one and the new one. But I've got to install the bypass cable before I can even read it. So best way I have found to do these challengers, the charger, it's up under here. The challenger, it's in here. Best way I found to do this is get one of these little pry bar tools, stick it in there, just kind of rock it, and then pull back till you hear it click. You've got to do that like 4 or 5 different places. And you have to be real careful in these thin spots not to break the plastic. I typically pry right here where there's like 3 ways so that it's got some like reinforcement. All right, so these guys are out. And then anytime I can get my fingers back here to kind of help, I always try that too. There's another one over here. And sometimes the little plastic tabs just snap off and there's nothing you can do about it. Good thing is there's like 8 of them in here. All right, now you have to be careful. If you just pull that, the only thing holding it is this right here, and it'll just crack and break. So you have to get over here and kind of just do the same thing, just work it. There we go. Then you've got to move the steering wheel. There we go. Just kind of fiddle and fart. Be real gentle. There we go. And I always check, because sometimes these little orange things stick in there. They just pop off. All of them stayed in place. Get this guy out of the way. And then the module is right here. So that little box right there is the security module that you have to plug your cable into. And that's the connector that you want. There's 2 connectors. So what you kind of have to do is push down right here with your thumb, and then with your finger kind of pull the wire. All right, so here's your bypass cable, and you plug the fat end with the heat shrink around it into the factory harness. And then this thing has to go into the security module. So you kind of have to tuck the wires down in there as far as you can get it so that you don't like kink your new bypass cable. Push it over to the side a little bit. You just kind of got to do this by feel. All right. There's the bypass cable. I'll get you up close so you can see what it looks like plugged in. I tried to push the factory wiring down as far as I can so that I'm not got like a 90-degree bend on the bypass cable. So here is the RIPPS catback exhaust compared to the stock exhaust. The diameter of the pipe is definitely bigger. This exhaust actually doesn't look too bad. I mean, there's no neck downs, it's all mandrel bent. Doesn't look too bad. The X pipe is kind of far back, which X pipes in the middle of nowhere don't make any sense. And this one is transitioning to an X pipe. The interesting thing to notice is in the video that they have on their YouTube channel, there's actually a brace welded across here, and there isn't on this one. Still looks like a good quality kit. Right here, the exhaust actually necks down. So I'm actually thinking I'm gonna take and cut about a 1/2 inch off to keep this from necking down. And boy, it looks like it was leaking pretty bad. And on these V6s, there's actually no headers. It actually just bolts straight to the exhaust manifold, or the exhaust manifold just bolts straight to the head, so you can't put headers on it. Only thing you can really do is modify your cats. And I'll say that this was kind of a challenge to get out, because from here all the way over to there is one big giant piece. So you gotta unbolt all of the hangers and then wiggle, 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 and that's why I got that thing. That really helped out a lot. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is you've got to transfer over all of these things. So a little lithium spray and some channel locks will get those off of there. That little guy right there is the air temperature sensor, intake air temp sensor, and it rotates and then pops out. You got to save this because it's going to come in handy later. This guy is completely useless now. It took all of these to get the 2 splash guards out and the little guards underneath. So when you're taking this thing apart, if you think you've got them all, you probably don't. Look a little harder, there's a bunch more. So the next step in the instructions is to get the front bumper off. And I'm not gonna lie, this is not straightforward. So I thought I'd take a second to show you. So that screw right there has to come out. And then that nut right there has to come out. And then even further up there, that nut has to come out. So I had to use some pretty long extensions. I guess you could get it from up top, but man, that would be hard. So some long extensions to get to that guy. I forgot to show this, but on the passenger side, there's this main connector that goes to the body that has all the lights tied into this harness. So you've got to get that connected before you pull the bumper off. Next thing the instructions say is that this thing has got to come off. So it's got a whole bunch of these little plastic push pins. And these push pins are a lot harder to get off. Now the instructions say to drill out the spot welds that are holding this bumper support in place. So it's bolted in place, but then it also has some spot welds to drill out. Next step in the instructions is actually to remove the radiator support and trim it. But I'm not sure I want to do that yet. I'm gonna wait on that one. But for sure you have to remove the factory airbox. And it's just 2 little push pins. Or it's a little push pin right there and then a little bolt. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting the intercooler and stuff in just to see if I actually need to cut that radiator support. We'll find out in a minute. There's a bag of nuts and bolts that's got 2 little brackets. Those go on the bottom of the intercooler, at least according to the instructions. So we'll see how this goes. So make sure you check these things. If you look down inside there, there's a whole bunch of metal shavings. If I tried to screw a bolt down in there, it wouldn't screw down in there. So I'm gonna have to get all these metal shavings out first. That was a healthy amount of shavings crammed down in that hole. I just noticed the brackets have a little etching in them that tell you where they go. Something I wanted to point out to people at home who may not realize things like this, they actually have this stuff built with a lot of tolerance in it. Tolerance meaning the ability to move things around. So I can move this thing from here, or watch how far I can move it. That was probably 2 inches. So I can move it 2 inches one way or another. These things also have a little bit of movement in them. So what I would say is, before you tighten all of this stuff down, get the intercooler piping and stuff run, and then tighten things down. Because that 2 inches of movement can be the difference between fitting and not fitting. And that's not sloppiness on behalf of RIPPS. Actually, that's a common practice in the engineering world. I was an engineer for 10 years. I have a 4-year engineering degree, and I worked as a design engineer for mechanical teams where we designed mechanical products and electrical. I also worked in software development and automation. This is actually a common practice in the engineering world when you have a non-critical part. For this thing to move around is perfectly acceptable in the engineering world. That's just something you have to keep in mind whenever you're dealing with something that's non-critical. There are things that are very critical, like do your cylinder heads match up with the pistons on your engine block? So they actually have locating dowels, which is another common engineering practice. When you need something to be perfectly on center to something else, you use location dowels. This is like that intentionally, and that's a good thing. That shows that these guys actually did a little bit of homework in how they engineer their kit. So keep that in mind throughout this entire install. When you're installing stuff like this is going to have a lot of pieces. So make sure you get all your pieces in place first, and then go back through and tighten everything down. Check your fitment, and then go back through and tighten it down. You'll be a lot happier with your install, and it'll be a lot easier on yourself. All right, here's the first little thing I found that I don't like about the kit. These are the bolts that hold this bracket up underneath here. It goes right here. It's to support the bottom of the intercooler. But in the kit, they include washers and a nut, but they don't lock in any way. And it's in front of the engine, and it's pointed down, which means it's prone to vibration. Anything that vibrates will come loose no matter how tight you make it. As a matter of fact, when you're trying to break something loose that's really tight, that's one of the first things you do is you shock it with some vibration. So I wanted to take a second and go over a couple of methods for locking things in place. So the simplest thing RIPPS could have done to make this pretty easy is included a little washer like this. It's called a lock washer. When you tighten it down and compresses that little gap right there, and it's a lock washer because it puts pressure on the nut, and that helps fight against vibration. In this scenario, I think my favorite thing would have been a nylock or a nylon lock nut. There's a little piece of nylon in there, and when you tighten this down, that nylon grabs the threads and it creates some resistance to make it difficult for it to vibrate loose. You can only use these 1 or 2 times. If you're constantly using it, you've ruined the nylock part of it. That's another one that would have been good. These little washers, a knurled washer, they also sell flange bolts where there's a flange around the head of the bolts that's just like this. It's a knurled flange nut. That will actually bite into the material. So whenever you tighten this down, it will bite into the material and create like little ridges that create some vibration resistance. Another thing, which is way overkill for this particular situation, there's these things called castle nuts. So basically, there's a hole drilled through the bolt this screws to, and then a pin goes in there, and that pin sits between those castles, and it can't back out. So this is used a lot on older suspension components. Another thing is a crush nut, where you can see this nut is kind of oblonged. Well, what they've done is crushed it right here on this collared part to do the same thing, just create some resistance to keep it from backing out. Another type of crush nut is these, where you see these little triangles in the head. What they do is they take a press and just press right there, and it kind of mushrooms the top thread on this so that you can get it started, and then once the bolt comes all the way up to there, it creates some resistance. So there's several different methods of locking fasteners in place to keep them from vibrating loose. So what I'm going to do on this install is I'm going to use their washer and a lock washer like this, just to make sure that everything stays in place and I don't have to worry about it vibrating loose a year from now.